Welcome back to We Talk Boxing, and today I will be discussing the fight which is going to take place between Joe Cordina versus Rakhimov, and this fight is going to take place on November the 5th in Abu Dhabi, live on DAZN. Now before continue, please subscribe and like for more boxing related content, and most of all, please leave a comment, guys. Let me know your thoughts, you know what I mean, in the comments below as well about this fight. Also, I will be doing a post-fight video analysis about the fight after the fight has happened, so stay tuned for that video as well. Now, this fight between Joe Cordina versus Rakhimov, you know what I mean, we'll see Joe Cordina, sorry, defend his IBF super featherweight belt, you know what I mean, against obviously the mandatory challenger, you know what I mean. Obviously Rakhimov, you know what I mean, is ranked quite highly in the IBF, you know what I mean, he's ranked #1 currently, you know what I mean, he's the mandatory challenger, you know what I mean, but he's also ranked, you know what I mean, #10 in the WBO and #3 in the Ring magazine as well. Whilst obviously Joe Cordina is the champion, you know what I mean, so he's you know what I mean, it's the only organisation that he's ranked with, but he's also ranked #5 in the Ring magazine ratings as well. So, Cordina, currently 15-0, you know what I mean, with 9 KOs to his name. Whilst his opponent, Rakhimov, you know what I mean, is currently 16 wins in 17 fights with 1 draw to his name as well. And he's also got 13 KOs as well to his name. So, again, quite big KO record there as well. Now, Rakhimov, you know what I mean, has a high KO percentage of 76%. You know what I mean? So he's pretty much considered a big puncher in the super featherweight division. Do you know what I mean? Whilst Cordina, on the other hand, you know what I mean, has got a good KO rate in himself. You know what I mean? 60%. And obviously in his last fight, he recorded a sensational second round KO victory over Kenichi Agawa as well, which I believe, you know what I mean, Agawa was pretty much, you know what I mean, a tough challenger at the time, and obviously Agawa, you know what I mean, is a tough challenger for anyone, you know what I mean, on his day. But you know what I mean, that KO, you know what I mean, over him, you know what I mean, will be in consideration for KO of the year because it was sensational. Do you know what I mean? Now, the head-to-head stats between both men, you know what I mean, reveal that Cordina is the older man by 2 years. Do you know what I mean? Both men, depending on which source you read, do you know what I mean, sees both men being 5'9". Do you know what I mean? But other sources claim that obviously Rakhimov is 5'8.5". But again, there's not much difference in the height there, really. Can't really find much stats, obviously, on their reach advantage between both men. But obviously, I'll get that information closer to the time as well. But obviously, both guys, you know what I mean, started their career pretty much a year apart. Obviously, Cordina was in 2014, and Rakhimov, you know what I mean, began his in 2015. Now, you know what I mean, when looking at, you know what I mean, both fighters, you know what I mean, the opposition that both guys have fought today, you know what I mean, there's only, you know what I mean, one recognizable name, you know what I mean, on Rakhimov's record, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, of the people that he's fought, and that's Joseph Diaz, do you know what I mean, who he fought, you know what I mean, last year, February 2021. And that fight was a majority draw, do you know what I mean? But it's quite interesting because one judge obviously gave the fight to Joseph Diaz, you know what I mean? So we had him winning, and the other 2 judges gave it a draw. But having watched that fight back myself, you know what I mean, from the highlights on YouTube and stuff, you know what I mean, it was a tough fight for both guys, you know what I mean? Obviously, Rakhimov is a strong, come forward Russian fighter, you know what I mean? Obviously, he's got good combinations, good chin and stuff like that, and good heart as well, you know what I mean? So he's an all-round fairly good boxer. Whilst Joseph Diaz, you know what I mean, for me, is a strong guy as well. And then he loves to come forward as well, and he always, to me, he seems as if he's that sort of boxer who's got something to prove. That is, I mean, he's a hard hitting puncher, and that he can take shots at the same time. So it was a good matchup between both guys. You know what I mean? And personally, I'd love to see the rematch between them because I thought, you know what I mean, it was a brilliant fight. Both guys landed some big shots on each other. Do you know what I mean? Especially Diaz, you know what I mean, in the earlier part of the fight, you know what I mean? He caught Rakhimov with some brilliant overhand rights and some punches, and on any other day probably would have hurt and stopped maybe most guys in that division. But as I said, you know what I mean, Rakhimov is quite durable, you know what I mean? He's got heart, you know what I mean? He's got guts and that, and he kept coming forward, and he, you know what I mean, he too was landing his own big shots on Diaz as well, and obviously in the end the fight got scored a majority draw, you know what I mean? And as I said, I'd like to see it again. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, he was the only noticeable name that I could see on Rakimov's record. But obviously, you guys can let me know a bit more about his opponents. You know what I mean? Has any of them been half decent? You know what I mean? Joseph Diaz is the only recognisable name for me, but you guys can let me know. Now, Cordina, on the other hand, you know what I mean, he shared the ring, you know what I mean, with some European slash fringe world level opposition, really, I'd probably say, up until his last fight, you know what I mean, against Agawa, because, you know what I mean, that was for, you know what I mean, the world title, do you know what I mean, and it was Cordina's first 12 round competitive fight, do you know what I mean, which the rest had been up until that point, 10 rounders. And obviously he handled that perfectly, you know what I mean? He stopped his man with a brilliantly overhand right, you know what I mean? Knocking him out, you know what I mean? He was out. He was out on the canvas. Do you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? For me, that was his only big test. I know he's been in with a few others and that, but for me, that was his big test up until that point. Do you know what I mean? But I think the key with this fight is that, you know what I mean? It's a big opportunity for both guys, both fighters, because how I see it, do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Both guys are pretty much, you know what I mean, ranked one and two. Obviously, one's a champion, one's obviously the mandatory challenger and stuff like that. But you know what I mean? Whoever pretty much wins this fight, you know what I mean, has got a lot of options open to him, because if you think about it, obviously the main man in that division, you know what I mean, who was Shakur Stevenson, you know what I mean, has, you know what I mean, he's lost all his titles, you know what I mean, he's now moved up to the heavier weight, do you know what I mean, of 135 pounds, because he failed to make the weight. Do you know what I mean? Over his recent opponent, which was Robson Concedo, which he beat anyway. Do you know what I mean? And if he, you know what I mean, he won that fight. And if he didn't fail to make the weights, he would still be champion, and he would have all them belts. But the belts now have been, you know what I mean, dispersed. Obviously, we've got a new WBA champion, obviously Hector Luis Garcia, you know what I mean, who's been elevated to the WBA champion. Whilst the other two belts, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, the WBO and the WBC are vacant. Do you know what I mean? So for me, this is a big opportunity for whoever wins this fight to potentially, you know what I mean, go on and either challenge Garcia for, you know what I mean, a unification, or potentially maybe challenge, you know what I mean, the new champions in the WBO and WBC. Do you know what I mean? And try and clear up some more of the belts in that division. Do you know what I mean? State a real claim, really. You know what I mean? As potentially the best, or one of the best in that division. So yeah, it's a brilliant opportunity for both guys. But do you know what I mean? My prediction, you know what I mean, for this fight, you know what I mean? I could see it, you know what I mean, kind of going the distance, to be fair. And I'd probably say that, you know what I mean, I'd have Joe Cordina winning on points. And I know a lot of you will probably say, oh yeah, you're only choosing him to win because he's the British fighter, etc., etc. But for me, you know what I mean? I see, you know what I mean, Joe Cordina with some brilliant boxing skills, and if he uses those skills, you know what I mean, if he boxes that distance and tries not to mix it too much with Rakhimov, then you know what I mean, I could see him frustrating and potentially make, you know what I mean, potentially confusing, or you know what I mean, causing, you know what I mean, a lot of trouble to Rakhimov, because Rakhimov is a come forward boxer, and he likes to box within range and put a lot of pressure on his man, you know what I mean, and catching on with some big shots. So as long as obviously Cordina, you know what I mean, doesn't he's not stupid or anything like that, and he boxes that range and works with that jab, you know what I mean, sticks the right hand on him every now and again and just moves, you know what I mean, tries to tie up Rakhimov when he comes close, to let the referee split them apart and stuff. Then for me, I'd probably say that he's got the better boxing skills, and he can hopefully keep his man off him. But this is boxing, and all it takes sometimes is one punch. Do you know what I mean? And you know what I mean? I'm not saying obviously Rakimov's a one punch type of fighter because as I said, he has got some good skills, but you know what I mean? For me, if he does catch him and if Cordina does mix it, then he will hurt him and he will knock him out. But I can see it going points. Do you know what I mean? As I said, you know what I mean? I know Rakimov is very durable. You know what I mean? This is Cordina's, for me, his second biggest test that he's had so far. He's got the skills, but has he got the durability? And as long as he doesn't get clipped, I can see him winning this on points. If he puts him out, I'll be very surprised. You know what I mean? If he puts him out like he did at Agawa, I'll be like, yo, this guy, you know what I mean? This guy's unbelievable. But I'm not sure here. I don't think Rakimov's gonna get put out like that, to be fair. But anyway, you know what I mean? You guys let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you know what I mean about this potential matchup? How do you see it going? Who do you consider the favourite? And who do you think's going to win? And by what method? Stoppage, points, KO? Let me know in the comments below. You know what I mean? I love to hear from you guys. You know what I mean? I want that feedback. Do you know what I mean? But as always, please like, subscribe, and comment for more boxing related content. Bless.